Welcome to Just Speak. I'm Corey. There's a question I hear all the time, a kind of myth that hangs over anyone trying to master a new language. Do you have to live in the country to become truly fluent? It feels like this giant, expensive, and often impossible wall for so many people.
It's the ultimate dream, right? Pack your bags, move to New York or London, and just absorb the language.
Exactly. And today, I'm so excited to have someone here who challenged that very idea and won. Elena, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Corey. It's a topic I'm really passionate about.
So let's just get right to it. You are incredibly fluent. You work with international clients, but you've never lived abroad, right? That's right. Not for any extended period. Everything was learned from my home country. That's amazing. And I think that's going to be a huge source of hope for our listeners. So today, we're going to break down how that's even possible. If you've ever felt stuck, thinking that fluency is out of reach without a plane ticket, stick around. You might change your mind. And hey, if you like what you hear, a quick tap on the subscribe button helps us reach more people just like you. So, Elena, let's go back to the beginning. Did you used to believe in the living abroad myth? Did you feel that pressure?
Oh, 100%. For years, I thought it was the only way. It was this big romantic idea in my head. I'd save up money, I'd figure out a visa, and that would be the magic key.
The magic key. I like that. What do you think is behind that belief? Why are we all so convinced it's the only path?
It's the idea of total immersion, isn't it? You're surrounded. You have to order coffee in English. You have to ask for directions in English. There's no escape.
Right. The environment forces you to use the language. It removes your safety net.
Exactly. But here's the thing I realized later on. Living abroad doesn't automatically grant you fluency. I know people who have lived in the US for years, and they still struggle.
Yes, because they stay in their own bubble. They work with people from their home country, they watch TV in their native language, they only socialize with people who speak their language. They're physically in the country, but they're not in the language. That is such a critical point. The location is just a potential advantage, not a guarantee.
It's potential. That's the perfect word. The real magic isn't the geographical location. It's the intentional immersion.
Intentional immersion. So you're saying that the person who stays home but is intentional can actually achieve more than the person who moves abroad but is passive? Absolutely. It's all about what you do with your 24 hours. The internet has completely changed the game. The environment is no longer just your physical street or city. It's what's on your phone, your laptop, in your ears. So the core idea isn't moving abroad, it's creating a world of English around you, wherever you are. Precisely. You have to be the architect of your own immersion. It actually takes more discipline to do it at home, I think. Why more discipline?
Because the safety net of your native language is always there. It's so easy to just switch back, to watch that movie with subtitles, to read the news in your own language. It requires a conscious decision over and over again to choose English.
That makes total sense. So you're not just fighting to learn a language, you're fighting against the path of least resistance.
Yes, and that's the real battle, not buying a plane ticket. The battle is in those small daily choices.
When did you have that aha moment? The moment you realized, wait, I don't have to move. I can do this from right here.
It was less of a single moment and more of a gradual realization. I started following some creators online, people who were fluent and had never lived abroad. I saw them and I thought, if they can do it, what's their secret?
And what was it?
It was always the same story. They didn't just study English for an hour a day. They lived in English. Their hobbies were in English. Their entertainment was in English. Their news was in English. The language wasn't a school subject. It was the medium for their life.
So it's a lifestyle shift, not a study habit.
That's the perfect way to put it. It's a total lifestyle shift. Once I understood that, the idea of needing to move abroad started to feel less like a requirement and more like one of many possible options, and not even the best one for me at the time.
I think that's incredibly empowering. It shifts the power back to the individual. It's not about your passport or your bank account, it's about your strategy and your dedication. Yes, you are in control. Your living room can be a more effective classroom than a flat in London if you design it that way. Okay, so we've busted the myth. The location isn't the key. Intentional immersion is. This leads to the big question. How? Elena, how did you, practically speaking, build this immersion bubble from your own home? It started with small, almost laughably simple things. The very first step, I changed the language on my phone to English. The classic move. I've heard this so many times. Does it really make a big difference? It's not about becoming fluent overnight. It's about normalization. Suddenly, you're seeing words like settings, clock, messages, missed call a dozen times a day. You learn that everyday functional vocabulary without even trying. It's like a constant low-level flashcard system. Exactly. It removes the friction. You just absorb it. After the phone, I went for my laptop, then all my social media. It was a digital takeover. A digital takeover. I love that. So, step one is changing the language of your devices. What came next? The biggest and most important part was entertainment. I made a rule: if I'm going to relax and watch something, it has to be in English. Oof, that can be tough at first. Did you use subtitles? Yes, but here's the crucial part. I used English subtitles, not subtitles in my native language. Why is that distinction so important? Because if the subtitles are in your native language, your brain gets lazy. You just read. You're not really listening to the English. But with English subtitles, you're connecting the sound you hear with the words you see. It trains your ear and your reading at the same time. So you're getting double the input. You're hearing it and seeing it simultaneously. Precisely. And as I got more comfortable, I started to experiment. I'd watch a 20-minute episode of a sitcom, something easy, with no subtitles at all. How did that feel? Was it overwhelming? The first few times, yes. I probably only caught 60%. But then I'd rewatch it with the English subtitles on, and I'd have these aha moments, like, oh, that's what they said. It became a game. That's a great active learning strategy. It's not passive consumption. You're actively testing yourself. And it's fun. That's the key. It can't feel like a chore. I started listening to podcasts, just like this one, on my commute. At first, I was just trying to get the general idea. Then I started focusing on specific phrases I liked. Did you find content that was specifically for learners? Sometimes, but mostly no. I think that's a mistake people make. They stick to learner content for too long. I wanted to hear the real thing. I listened to podcasts about my hobbies, graphic design, history, movies. That way, even if I didn't understand every word, I was still engaged because I was interested in the topic. That's a fantastic point. The motivation comes from the content itself, not just the act of learning. Yes. If you love cooking, watch cooking shows in English. If you love gaming, watch streamers who speak English. Tie the language to your passions. It's the most powerful hack there is. So we have devices and entertainment. What else was in your bubble? Reading. I switched from reading news on local websites to international ones, like the BBC or The Guardian. I started with articles, then moved on to books. I picked up a young adult novel, something with simpler language. Like Harry Potter or The Hunger Games? Exactly like Harry Potter. The language is accessible, but it's rich and authentic. I'd read with a dictionary app on my phone, not to look up every single word, that would be exhausting, just the ones that kept up hearing or seemed crucial to the plot. It sounds like the overarching theme here is integration. You didn't set aside 1 hour for English time, you wove it into the fabric of your existing life. That's the only way it becomes sustainable. It stops being studying and starts being living. Your immersion bubble isn't a place you visit, it's the home you build for your mind. Alina, I think a lot of people listening might be nodding along right now. They can change their phone language, they can watch movies. That's the input part. But then comes the wall, the output, the fear of actually speaking.
The wall. Yes, that's the scariest part, isn't it?
It is. All that knowledge is in your head, but getting it out of your mouth feels impossible. How do you practice speaking when you're not in a country where you can just go order a coffee?
This was my biggest hurdle for the longest time. I had all this passive knowledge, but I was terrified of opening my mouth. I felt like I would sound stupid, or my accent was too thick, or I'd forget a word mid-sentence. I've seen so many brilliant people struggle with that. The fear of making a mistake is paralyzing. It truly is. And the first step to overcoming it is a mindset shift. You have to redefine success. Success is not speaking perfectly. Success is communicating your idea. That's it.
So, fluency isn't perfection.
Not at all. Think about it, Corey. Do native speakers speak perfectly? They use filler words, they stumble, they correct themselves.
All the time. I'm probably doing it right now. We say, like, we start a sentence and then change our minds.
Exactly. So why do we hold ourselves to this impossible standard of robotic perfection? The goal is connection, not perfection. Once I really truly accepted that, it took a huge weight off my shoulders.
Okay, so mindset is step one. Accept imperfection. What's the practical step two? How do you actually practice?
You have to find low-stakes opportunities. The idea of talking to a native speaker right away was terrifying, so I started smaller, much smaller. How small? I started talking to myself.
Really?
Yes, out loud. I know it sounds crazy, but I would narrate my day. Okay, now I am making coffee. I am putting the coffee in the filter. It felt silly, but it was training my mouth to form English sounds and my brain to think in English. There's zero pressure because no one is listening. That's actually genius. It's like a private rehearsal. It is. From there, I graduated to reading out loud. I'd take a book or an article and just read it aloud to practice my pronunciation and the flow of sentences. Then came the next level, recording myself.
Ooh, that's brave. Most people hate the sound of their own voice.
I do too, but it's an incredibly powerful tool. I'd use the voice memo app on my phone and talk for 1 minute about my day. Then I'd listen back. I would hear my mistakes, my pauses, the words I was struggling with. It was my own personalized feedback loop.
That is so proactive. You became your own teacher.
I had to. And then, finally, I was ready for the big step, talking to another human being. Where did you find them? Online. There are amazing language exchange apps and websites. Tandem, HelloTalk, platforms where you can find someone who is a native English speaker and wants to learn your language.
So it's a trade. You help them, they help you.
Exactly. And the beautiful thing is, they know you're a learner. They expect you to make mistakes. In fact, they're a learner too, so they understand the fear. It's a very safe, supportive environment. Did you start with texting or go straight to voice calls? I started with text and voice messages. That gives you time to think and compose your thoughts. Then, when I felt comfortable with a particular partner, we would schedule a short 15-minute call. Keeping it short reduces the pressure.
That seems to be a recurring theme, lowering the stakes. Talk to yourself, record yourself, text first, short calls. You're making it as easy as possible to succeed.
You have to. You build confidence in small increments. You can't go from silent to giving a public speech. You have to build that muscle, conversation by conversation, mistake by mistake.
We've talked about the mindset and the strategies, but I'd love to get even more specific. Let's talk tools and habits. Elena, what were some of the non-negotiable, everyday things that you feel really moved the needle for you?
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. I think one of the most powerful habits was what I call active noticing.
Active noticing? What does that mean?
It means when I was consuming any English content, a podcast, a movie, a book, I always had a little notebook or a notes app open. I wasn't writing down grammar rules. I was writing down phrases, chunks of language that native speakers actually use.
So not just single words?
Almost never single words. That was a huge shift for me. I used to learn lists of vocabulary like happy, sad, big, but that's not how we talk. We talk in chunks. So instead of learning the word difficult, I'd notice someone say, "That was a bit of a challenge," or "I'm having a tough time with this."
Ah, so you're learning the language in its natural habitat. The context is built in.
Exactly. And then the most important part, I had to use that new phrase. I'd set a small goal to use one of my new chunks in a text conversation with my language partner that day.
That closes the loop, doesn't it? From input to output.
It makes it stick. Otherwise, it's just a list of phrases you'll forget. This habit alone of collecting and then using language chunks probably did more for my fluency than any textbook.
That's a fantastic actionable tip. What about tools? Any specific apps or websites you found indispensable?
Well, the language exchange apps we mentioned, like Tandem, were key for speaking. For vocabulary, I didn't love traditional flashcard apps. Instead, I used a dictionary app called Word Reference.
What's special about it?
It doesn't just give you the definition, it gives you dozens of example sentences, and it has forums where native speakers discuss the nuances of a word. So you learn how a word is used, not just what it means.
It's all about context again.
Always. Another tool, and this might sound simple, was YouTube, but I used it very strategically. I would find a short 5-minute video on a topic I liked, I would listen once, then I'd use a browser extension that shows the transcript right next to the video. I'd read and listen at the same time.
A bit like the subtitle strategy you mentioned earlier.
Yes, but even more focused. I'd find a sentence I thought sounded cool or useful, and I would practice saying it exactly like the speaker. I'd try to match their intonation, their rhythm, their stress. It's called shadowing.
Shadowing. I've heard that's incredibly effective, but also quite challenging.
It is, but it trains your mouth and your ear to the music of the language. English has a very specific rhythm, and shadowing helps you internalize it. You don't have to do it for hours. Just 5 minutes a day makes a huge difference over time.
And that brings us to the final and maybe most important piece of the puzzle: consistency.
Oh, it's everything, 100%.
It's better to do 20 minutes every single day than a 3-hour marathon on a Sunday, right?
Without a doubt. Language learning is a compounding process. Small daily investments grow exponentially. That 20 minutes a day, every day for a year, is over 120 hours of focused practice. It's about building a habit that becomes as natural as brushing your teeth.
How did you stay motivated on the days you just didn't feel like it?
I made my minimum baseline ridiculously small. My rule was, even on my worst day, I have to do one thing in English. Maybe that's just listening to one song and looking up the lyrics, or sending one text to my language partner.
So you could always check the box. You never had a 0 day.
Never. A 0 day kills momentum. By having a tiny minimum, I kept the chain going. And often, once I started that one small thing, I'd feel motivated to do more. The secret is just to start.
Elena, this has been so incredibly insightful. I feel like we've taken this huge, intimidating goal of fluency and broken it down into something that feels, well, possible. That's the goal. It is possible. It's not easy, but it's not magic. It's strategy and consistency. Let's just quickly recap the big ideas for everyone listening. First, forget the myth that you have to live abroad. The key is intentional immersion, which you can create right where you are. Yes, be the architect of your own English-speaking world. Change your devices, your entertainment, your news sources. Then, to overcome the fear of speaking, you have to lower the stakes. Talk to yourself, record your voice, and use language exchange apps to find safe, supportive partners. Remember, the goal is communication, not perfection. Absolutely. And finally, focus on a few key habits. Learn language in chunks, not single words. Use tools that provide context. And above all, be consistent. 20 minutes a day is more powerful than you can possibly imagine. It's about building a system, not just relying on motivation. Elena, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your wisdom with us. You've given a lot of people a practical roadmap, and more importantly, a lot of hope.
It was my absolute pleasure, Corey. Thanks for the great conversation.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on Just Speak. My question for you today is this: what is one small thing you can do right after this episode ends to start building your own immersion bubble? Maybe it's changing your phone's language. Maybe it's finding one podcast about a hobby you love. Just one small thing. Think about it. We'll be back next week with another conversation. Until then, take care.